And we are live. So somebody asked me a year or two ago who my biggest competitor was. And my answer to this question initially was going to be just like everybody else in my industry and start thinking about the other agents in my market. Start thinking about the brokerages that are out there selling real estate and thinking that they're my competitors. But when I actually got to the core of the question, the first words out of my mouth was Amazon. And they looked at me very confused because Amazon is not in the real estate business. And I am. We sell real estate in Southwestern Ontario, Canada. We do residential, commercial. We do investments. I'm a global ambassador, work directly with Ryan Serhant and his team. He's been my mentor since 2018. We send referrals literally everywhere. So when I started thinking about it and I'm like, who's my actual competitor? It's not another agent in my market because most of those agents work at an independent brokerage. We own prime real estate. It's me and my wife, and we're not really a brokerage. Right. I always tell people I'm the anti-real estate agent because our brokerage, we're not hiring, we're not recruiting. We don't care about agent count. We don't care about office count. The only thing we care about is being the most trusted name in real estate, meaning you see my name or you see prime and you know instantly that we have protected that culture and core value. And if you see my logo on an agent, you know that that comes with a level of market intelligence and aptitude and trust that you can rely on. And if somebody breaks that core value, the biggest one being do nothing out of selfish ambition, rather in vain conceit, put others before yourself. When I see people putting their money before people, I don't care how much money they make the brokerage, they're gone instantly. I've made those decisions in the past. I will make them in the future. I will fire myself if I ever find myself in that situation. So when I think again, back to the core of who's my biggest competitor, I think about the landscape of the real estate industry. When the advent of AI, for all you consumers watching, a lot of people think, well, the internet's going to replace real estate agents. We've been through that, right? Once the sold data is public and everybody has access to the sold data, then agents are going to be useless. We went through that. In the States, you've had sold data since 2012. The high value agents are still around because the people who can interpret the data still offer an inherent value, right? Then AI comes around. And I started thinking, yeah, AI is going to replace a lot of low value agents because if the level of skill that is provided in a deal analysis, negotiation, marketing plan for a listing is no more complex than what AI can provide you, then that agent probably should be gone. Right. And when I think of the real estate companies that are out there, there's 3 or 4 different models and they're all great. I've got no issues with any other business models. I'm just very clear on what mine is. But let's talk about the 3 main models you'll find in real estate. One is Scott Simons wants to sell his house and he puts a for sale by owner sign in his front lawn. You can do that. Anybody can sell their house themselves. If you want to know how, text me. I'll literally teach you how to do it. The thing with that is you need to do 3 things when you sell a house. You need to price, market, negotiate effectively. You need to be able to look at comparables and understand the context of the comparables and how they impact your house. And I bet you think your house is the nicest one on the street. So just make sure you're being a little bit objective about when you're looking at the pricing analysis, and you have to announce it to the world. So you have to market it. And a lot of people say doing a for sale by owner will just put it on the MLS system and pay a flat fee to get it on MLS because everybody's on MLS and that's where people search for properties. Well, coming out of a bear market right now, there's more inventory than we've ever seen in the real estate market. So putting it on the MLS is definitely a tool. But what we've been building at Prime for the last decade is a data set and a marketing suite that actually generates 5 to 10 times the amount of leads as MLS. And the reason I'm giving that is the second context I'm going to give is to kind of our model and how you can effectively get in front of more people. But let's just say you put the sign on lawn, you put it on MLS, and then you start getting showing requests. Well, letting the people into the house, dealing with the inbound inquiries, sending them the sales packages, pre-negotiating that deal, having them come through your house, maybe giving you some critical feedback that makes you feel one way or another, giving you a lowball offer that you're like, don't even want to sign back. And then you let that buyer walk away. All of these things can impact your like net effective sale price, right? But let's just say you saved the entire commission, you sold your house yourself. Congrats. You can totally do that. The second way is you hire your standard real estate brokerage, which again, you'll have a brokerage house. There's a broker of record. There is an administrative staff. And then there's a whole bunch of agents that work at that brokerage. They typically, when they get their licenses, interview the brokerages, which I always found very interesting. They literally will call like 5 or 10 brokerages and go interview the brokers. And what can you do for me? And they all say the same thing. We'll give you leads. We'll give you great splits and we'll give you great training. And here's a 100-page manual for you to read through. And that's your training and good luck, right? Every brokerage does it differently. Some offer more comprehensive, some less comprehensive, but essentially that's what it is. You hire an agent at that brokerage and that agent is your agent Fun fact, you're actually signed with the brokerage itself. So if that agent quits, that's a whole other discussion. But that is a typical model, right? Independent, large kind of bricks and mortar, what your typical brokerage is. Also in the traditional real estate model, there is the virtual brokerages, which a lot of them don't have bricks and mortar locations. There's one agent that's working for a virtual brokerage, and a lot of them are all over the different markets. And some of them are in, say, the speaking or looking to build like national teams, and maybe they're selling homes in their market, but you're hiring an agent that works at a virtual. So it's like virtual or bricks and mortar. When you look at our brokerage, the reason I'm explaining the models is when I look at what Prime is positioning itself to be versus the traditional models or the for sale by owners, the person I'm probably most concerned about isn't those models, because I don't really compete with either of them. I'm not really a brokerage. I don't recruit. I don't care about agent count or office count. So I'm not competing with the large nationals or even the virtual brokerages, because we're not in the same business. When I think of the individual agents, I'm like, well, we're building a company that specializes in real estate. We have a production company, marketing division, administrative. Like, I'm not really competing with the individual agents. Who am I competing with? And then what came forth was Amazon. Because if Amazon decided all of a sudden they wanted to buy Berkshire Hathaway or one of the largest real estate companies in the world, and then it owns 60 or 70% of the actual national real estate companies that all fall under an umbrella that you don't know about, well, then there's somebody that is going to be getting in front of my consumers and pulling more and more business from us. But how do I defeat Amazon? And that is the crux of this entire episode. So if you feel like you can't compete with companies like Amazon, like think about how much money Bezos has. I think there might be a black helicopter flying outside my house. So if I disappear, you know who to call. How you compete with Bezos and what Amazon cannot do that we did is scale people. Amazon can scale profits, right? I don't know how they do that, because they deliver a pair of scissors in a box that's about this big to my house, and the gas that they pay and everything else to get that box to my house. I don't know how it's profitable, but they definitely are looking to scale profit, right? They are building infrastructure and logistics to squeeze margins to extract profits from people. What Amazon doesn't have the ability to do in the real estate market is build the relationships from a belly to belly perspective that we are able to, and we have built over the next 20 years. If Amazon decided they wanted to come to London, Ontario tomorrow and set up a commercial plaza, which they recently did actually in Talbotville, their approach to that is very different to ours. And maybe their access to deal flow is very different than ours. Or if Amazon bought a real estate brokerage and wanted to compete in selling a house in Sunningdale, which is 4 minutes from my office, the relationships that we have and the exposure that we actually have from building the years and years and years and years of relationships is very different. Because if they put up an ad for a house that's, say, priced effectively on MLS, their standard way that consumers are going to look at it, and then that same consumer looks at a video that I did for that property that explains the things that you can't find on MLS about that neighborhood, what's coming up in the area, talks about the relationships and the types of people that I've actually relocated to those places. There's a depth to value that the consumers are going to see in that Amazon simply is not going to be able to compete with. And I know this because we quite often go up against multinational companies and win mandates because we're smaller, because we're faster, and because they want our relationships. When they hire us, they want the ability to have their name linked to the work that we've done in the city and what that means. And when we amplify our customer success, it's definitely on a smaller scale than an Amazon or a company that's putting out billions of dollars a year. But I would argue that if you put the people over the profits, at the end of the day, you're going to build a better ecosystem that is going to support you when things go wrong. Because if you look at a company that is scaling profits and really putting people on the back burner in down markets, when things go the other way, the people that actually supported the ecosystem and the people in the market first will have those people to rely on when those companies are nowhere to be seen, because their model doesn't work unless they're squeezing every dollar out of every human being. Now, when you've transformed this concept of success of not only putting your profit at the very, very top of your list, rather putting the people, you're going to realize that the trust is becoming the new currency, that you can't compete with the multinationals, that the people that are strictly competing on price are going to receive compression. In the real estate industry, I bet you've all seen it. Commission compression. What's your commission? I went to a new sushi restaurant yesterday, walked in. She's right by my office. Brand new location. I could have ordered, skip the dishes. I could have just, the convenience factor, come to my office, probably bang out a couple emails, do some work, hang out. But instead, I actually was showing a retail location for a new tenant that we have. Saw that they were just opening, walked in, ordered food from the owner. I was like, I'll sit here and do my work. And I had a really good conversation with her. Told her my office was right behind the location, learned a little bit about her and her family. Some other people came in, connected with them. First words out of her mouth was, what's your commission that you charge? And I said, that's the wrong question. The commission that you charge is only one factor of the transaction. Do you care about what commission you're paying, or do you care about how much money you're making? That simple line gives me the ability to start explaining case studies, right? And sometimes my commission's one price. Sometimes it's another. Sometimes it's another. It depends on the relationship, how many deals that person's done with me, what the long game is of that relationship. And I don't have commission breath. I'm not looking at every transaction trying to squeeze $1 out of you and telling you whatever you want to hear so I could put my sign on your lawn. Like, what I want is when you're at a party and somebody mentions the word real estate, I don't care if it's, I need an agent in Texas or anywhere on the globe, or you're selling something in my territory. Oh, I'll text Justin. He knows somebody. That's it. That's my end game. It's not getting a paycheck because I just want my sign on a lawn and I want the ego boost of having my signs everywhere. And I just want tons and tons and tons of money. Because never in my life have I met anybody in any industry who achieves a certain number and then everybody in the industry is like, look, he finally made it. It's always the goalpost gets moved, right? And they're typically doing it because they want that acknowledgement from their industry or to make themselves feel better, but they never get it because it's just numbers on a board. But the people that have legacy, trust, loyalty, and respect, those are the people that I admire. And those are the people that I'm speaking to. Every single person who's watching this video who has a fire inside of them, if you're in the custom sneaker industry, if you own a coffee shop, if you're a personal trainer that has one client, if you truly feel like you have something valuable to give and you start touching people on a daily basis and giving them more than you're taking, the compounding interest of the people and the relationships will build a business and a referral network that will make your business bigger than you ever thought it possible and allow you to modify your life by design to fit into the ecosystem of your community the way we were actually built to be. Because I think we really got away from having communities. We went through the Industrial Revolution, right? Where all of a sudden working at a factory for this many hours was something to be aspired to. Then we went through the education revolution, where you can go to school to get the MBA to jump over having to work for 25 years to get the management position. You could jump right into the management position. Then we went through the digital revolution, which we're in right now too, which is now removing a lot of the gatekeepers and allowing people to go direct to consumer like I'm doing right now. The platforms we've built over the last decade have a larger digital impact than some of the largest real estate brands in Canada. Little old prime real estate, which people are very confused about why we're getting some of the mandates that we're doing and the volume of business that we're doing. And why would Brian Surahan choose Justin Conoco in little old London, Ontario to be one of the global ambassadors, 7 out of 13,000 plus. I'm not saying that because I'm special. I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back, but it's because we were able to put people over the profits. It's funny because when I met Ryan initially, I had preconceived notions of who he was and thought, oh, he's just a guy on TV. Like, what's he going to teach me? He's in Manhattan. Bravo kind of made him look like a little bit very much crass and not necessarily like a tactical business person. I had a friend, a real friend, that called me one day and said, hey, Justin, how do I do YouTube? So I went down, hung out with this friend, showed him how to set up cameras and everything. Never thought he'd actually do it because this guy doesn't even use a laptop. He's one of the top agents in Canada. Doesn't use a laptop. Everything's on his phone. About a month, 2 goes by, hires a video person. He goes to New York, meets Ryan. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Starts shooting a podcast. He texts me. He's like, yo, you need to meet Ryan. I was like, okay. And I'm like, what's he going to teach me? He's in New York City. He's like, he's an operator. He's like us. You need to meet him. So he connected me with, it was Jordan Hurt at the time in December 2018. Made the initial connection. I went down, brought 2 of my real estate agents, hung out with him, met Ryan. And it was fascinating because when I started asking Ryan questions about like, how'd you go into New York City not knowing anybody and build what you're building? Because a lot of people in New York City, like, you're talking relationships that go back centuries, right? Like old family relationships. And it was just the grind, right? It was him going in and building relationships. He was going to Starbucks and, somebody would walk in, lady's pregnant. He's like, oh, you probably need a bigger house because you're having a baby. And like he would build relationships with people and then he would follow up, follow back, follow through. What I found was interesting, though, is the one thing that they were kind of chewing on was systems SOPs. And that's what I'm really crazy about, right? I love building action plans. I love working on our systems. We use very in-depth CRMs. I've done tons of videos on this channel about that. Hit the subscriber notification button if you want to just see those videos. They'll start popping back up in your feed, or drop in the comments if there's like specific videos you want me to do. I'll do it. But going back to my conversation around the relationship with Ryan, when I went back, I remember I connected with Jen LS, who's his head of new development. And I said, hey, Jen, you guys gave me so much value. Like there was a very complex problem I was trying to solve. Gave it to him. He gave me some ideas. I came back and like, man, that was so valuable. What could I do for them to give back rather than me just taking all this great information that they gave me? So I actually pulled a whole bunch of my action plans and I sent them to Jen. And then we started comparing notes on like new development pitches and I started sending them and started working with Kristen and Joe and Raf and like the rest of their crew. Like Ryan's the personality in the face and maintain a relationship with him, but started really just looking at the people in the ecosystem and like, what do I have that maybe is somewhat valuable to them, or how can I support the ecosystem? And I can't tell you the dividends that paid in terms of relationships. I'm going to be seeing them this year and getting belly to belly with them again. It feels like I'm with family, not for the photo op. I may not even share a whole bunch about that trip, because I think that's what a lot of people think the end game is the photo op or the sales. I mean, it's not. It's just getting around people that are actual operators and inspire you to become your best self. It's the entire reason I do this channel. 2 quick stories I'll tell you about how my agents have impacted me recently. That is a sign that we're on the right track. There was one big land deal my commercial division was working on. And it got brought to me by a lawyer off market because he felt like the seller was getting hosed, right? It was, I think, a little old lady, and somebody brought her a deal off market. He's like, "What do you think about this?" I'm like, "I think you're leaving like $1 million to $2 million on the table. This development land in this proximity to Amazon and everything else." I'm like, I would open it up to a couple key players and kind of see what's on the table. But I also am very quick to say, like, I don't need a paycheck. I'm not for sale. I'm not saying this to get my name on the sign. If I can't add value, then just have them do the direct deal. I'm happy for people if they can do a private deal and it works out. Just remember my name and that I did this for you and refer me business. That's literally how we built Prime. We go into the transaction. Sure enough, we get 3 offers. We extract about $2 million worth of value out of this transaction for the seller. We feel really good about it. Going back to the commission, yes, we made a lot of money doing that transaction, but the commission they paid us was a fraction of the profit value that we gave. So we could have charged probably 10% plus and still made them more profitable than if they did it on their own. So that transaction I feel good about. Going back to the story though, when we had the 3 offers, one buyer came direct to us. And this is where the rubber meets the road. In the real estate industry, I bet so many of you are out there like, I'm just going to go direct to the listing agent because I'm going to get the best deal. That agent's going to throw in his commission or just tell me the lowest price the seller was willing to take, and then I'll get a better transaction. How many people out there think going direct to the listing agent is the best way to achieve the best results on a property? They came to us, and the one seller tried to do that. And I sat there and I watched, and I was very curious on how my team member was going to react because core values are everything to me. His response to that purchaser was, "Thank you so much." The purchaser actually offered $90,000 for him to basically get that offer to the top of the list. And he said, just take that $90,000, put it on your offer, and just give us your best and final offer. We can't disclose anything to do with the other offers. Make it your best and final. And, we're going to just do the transaction, see where it lies. Sure enough, another purchaser ended up getting the transaction. My agent was not for sale, but I pulled him aside after and I said, that decision that you just made is going to impact the rest of your life. Had you decided to take that money, A, I would have stopped the transaction from happening. You'd probably no longer be working here, but B, you would be no different than the world who is just chasing mammon and just chasing profits and chasing money. And you now are for sale. Once you make that decision, or if you've made that decision and are unwilling to adjust it, they know you're for sale. And the next time you do a transaction, it's just going to keep getting squeezed. You're going to keep getting squeezed, and it's going to weigh on you in a way that making the right decision never will. That seller, now that you know that case study, that lawyer, now that he knows that case study, you can't imagine how much business they have referred us because of the simple fact that they know that they can trust us. That was the best feeling on the face of the earth, because a lot of people can say that they put people before profits, but when you actually see it in action, even though it may seem like you're leaving money on the table, I promise you in the long run, you will win, because I see the other side of the industry where I call an agent and they say things to me like, oh man, if I don't double in this property, I'm only making this much money. Instant aversion to that type of business on my side, because I, as a seller, would never want an agent that would exclude other agents from selling my property because they wanted to double end it. It's the exact case study we said. Sure, maybe you save some money on the commission, but if you leave $2 million on the table, how would that make you feel? Happens every single day in real estate. So I really wanted to share some case studies so you guys can understand how that kind of works. Another case study I want to share is a client of ours that had a property out west in Canada. The market definitely shifted out there, and we spent about 3 years consulting on what to do as markets shift up and down. Connected him with our referral network out there, was able to get him some insights and help him through that process. And we recently did a transaction with him. But my favorite thing about the transaction was the message he sent me after. He sent me a message about one of my agents, about how much that agent stuck by him, how patient he was, how he didn't feel pushed, and that he felt like he could trust him more than anybody else. And it made me feel really good, because the agent that he was talking about is the avatar of what every single one of you can be. Every single person in our communities, whether you're selling cars like Scott Simons, whether you're like Glenn Rudin, Christina, Tom Challen doing his thing with his wife, like the butterfly effect that you can have by truly building authentic communities, being yourself, because we're all inherently different and beautiful in our own ways, and then allowing other people's interests to be impacted by the decision you make, is how we create a better world. I've always thought of this visual in my mind of Grand Bend, Ontario, Canada, little beach town that I live in. In the summer times, it's insane. The beach strip is beautiful, right? It is packed with cars. There's parking meters on the road. And if there's a whole row of parking meters, and then there's me, and I pull up, and I park, and I put money on my own meter, and I start walking down the street, and I see all these meters starting to expire, and I happen to have a pocket full of change, and I spend my time filling those meters. And then those people come back, and they're coming back from the beach, and my meter expires, and they're filling my meter. And then the entire community is activated in such a way where, yeah, maybe they're giving a little bit of money out of their pocket, or a little bit of their energy, time, resources, skills to other people that they pass in the street. Think of the world that we can create versus what the corporate monsters have done over the last 50 years, which has made us feel like we need to squeeze every single dollar out of every single human being. I promise you, at the end of the day, if you are willing to sacrifice the short-term gain for the long-term ambition, it will change everything in your business. It has for us at Prime. Like I said, I'm not for sale. I don't do coaching. I don't sell anything. This isn't even to get you to subscribe. But if you want to connect with me, this channel is probably the best way for you to do it. If not, go over to Instagram, send me a DM. If there's specific things that you want me to dig into like the tactical side of our business, how we do the marketing, the sales, the negotiation, the CRM, the time blocking, you can go to justinconico.com, this page right here. And if you go to the resources section, there's a ton of free PDFs. And then the Prime People podcast is a ton of my interviews with Ryan Serhant and a whole bunch of other people. So that's about it for me today. I'll catch you next Friday, 7 to 7:30 a.m. But I appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I'll get back to all the comments at some point today. But thank you all for being here. Take care.